So this is my butterfly, the underside of it, and you can see my butterfly's face with the curled proboscis, and I've made this fluffy here, like hair, for a joke. And if you look at the anatomy of butterflies, you'll see what joke I'm making. And I've segmented the legs, which, yes, they have 6. Butterflies have 6 legs, and some appear not to, because and if you actually look at caterpillars and adult butterflies, you can see what happened. But anyway, these 2 legs on some of them are just smaller, and I've segmented the legs, and not exactly appropriately, but butterflies have a head, which is not round, and the eyes don't look like that or anything, and a thorax where the legs come out of, and an abdomen. And and you'll notice with butterflies, the antennae are clubbed at the end, but they're not, they're sleek. Whereas with moths, the antennae are hairy, so they look like feathers. They're actually quite beautiful. And so this butterfly is just black on the underneath. And so I suppose if you looked at it just from below, you'd say it's a black butterfly. And then if somebody else was looking at it from above, then they'd say it's a rainbow butterfly. But I guess it's just a matter of perspective. So I will be talking about these things. I've been reading a lot of Pat Califia. This one's Macho Slut, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about that just now, actually, although I've already read it, and I'm working my way through the last couple right now, and I should be done them by tomorrow. Anyway, and I'll be talking about these things, and these are actually very linked. So James will talk about this later, and I will talk about the Pat Califia stuff, because I think I know more about this than he does, and I think he knows more about this than I do. But anyway, I'm just going to talk about these right now, and I'm just telling you we will be talking about these within the next couple of days. So, setting that up. And if you were wondering how I got sick lately, well, I've been doing things like drinking coffee. So, and along with the coffee, whenever I start drinking coffee, I know I'm in trouble, because then I start making really, really bad choices, and I'll do things like it just opens up everything. I'll start eating a lot of dairy, which I can't have because it's because I can't have dairy. I don't get lactose intolerance or anything. It's not that. It's a sensitivity. So anyway, but it's not lactose intolerance. It's not to lactose, but it causes problems with me too. And then I start eating sugar, and I could just go right off. I just fall right off the wagon, because these things, you know, I would like to be able to eat convenient things, and that I don't have to cook myself and or prepare. And honestly, I think it's some sort of I think it's a psychological thing, because I know that I shouldn't have the coffee, but I have it, and then I know it's going to cause problems, and it does, and every time it's the same thing, right? So I don't know exactly what triggers it is stress. If I get too stressed out, then I go after these things, and this never makes it better. But this is apparently decaf. My friend makes it whenever I'm offered, and he didn't even offer this time. It was just made. So I went in there and I'm like, yep, because I'm that hooked right now. I can't tell if it's decaf or not, but he tells me it is, so. Anyway. So, which one will I talk about first? I actually like this one. And it's sort of, it has a very Dove and Hallmark feel about it. But it's a delightful story. It says that it's based on a true story. I don't know how much is really true to reality, but the mother dies, father is left to care for his son completely, and he's been out working, and it's just his whole world has changed. So he's dealing with a lot of stuff too, and he's having to try to care for his son, and all of these things, like social services giving him trouble because his son Opie is getting really bad. That's not why social service is giving him trouble. What Opie does right now, Opie is scratching the door. He's scratching the door frame in the door, and he has very thick nails. I don't know, or maybe it's just his level of anxiety is just that high that he really uses a lot of force, but he leaves gouges in the, and so I'm constantly having to fix things when he goes after it. So right now he's and he's trying to get at me because he doesn't like that I'm here away from him. And when I go away from him, and it could be just me leaving into the bedroom and shutting him out, then he makes messes and stuff. It's terrible. He's a very stressed out little fellow. And I'm watching a dog training video right now. We will see if we can work this out, because he, unless I'm with him constantly, he causes problems, like serious destructive problems. And anyway, we'll see what's gonna happen. So anyway, so back to this. So this it's very distracting because he's wailing right now and scratching the door. I don't know if you can hear that. I can hear it, and he wants me to hear it. But anyway, he should be happy. Right now I'm cooking him a whole chicken. It's cooking in the slow cooker. And yesterday I made him smokies, or whatever. They were great big sausages. And, well, they each got a sausage. And there's one sausage left, and I'm going to cut it into pieces, and they're each going to get it. And they ate french fries, because we had french fries given to us too. But anyway, back to this, which is actually worth watching. As long as, you know, it's not overly Christian or anything. If you're worried about that, it's just a nice story. I don't know how true it is, but it says it's based on a true story. And so the guy is having problems with social services because the kid he's getting bruises on him because some kid at school is beating him up, and the school system, they're not stopping it. And they could say, oh, well, we don't know. No, they know. Because I remember when I was little, and this was a long time ago, and things do not get better all the time, but when I was little, I would defend other children, and I remember I saw this little kid, and there was a whole bunch of kids that were gathered around. He was crying because they'd pulled down his pants and they were showing off that he was wearing a diaper. He was in grade 1, and the kids that had pulled down his pants were a bit older, like maybe grade 2, not that much older. But I didn't know who they were, so maybe they were grade 3. And I was in grade 2 at the time. So anyway, he was crying, and I saw what was happening. This was happening for quite a while. I was looking over at the teacher, and she's looking the other direction. And like, because there's a teacher supervising. And so I went to her and I'm like, you have to stop this. You know, this is what's happening and you need to stop this now. And so she went over because I made her, but she wouldn't have. And it was obvious. Anyway, so these things happen. Kids will be kids. Boys will be boys, right? And so this autistic kid, he's getting picked on by a bully. And a lot of the time, the people who make it to become teachers, especially principals, they're bullies. And so they're not going to stop this sort of thing. Anyway, so this kid's being bullied and he's getting bruises on him. And it's bad, right? And so the father takes him to the hospital one day for something else. He's gotten into an accident. Father took him, and the social services, and then they investigate and they realize, oh well, he's not being abused by his dad, you know, and this and that. And so they figured that out. And anyway, so the guy is just, the stress is just piling on, right? And he has people who are well-intentioned who are giving him advice that he already knows, and he has so much stress, and like the kid, he only wants to eat macaroni and cheese. Mac and cheese all the time. And the dad does not want him to only eat mac and cheese, but what is he going to do? You know, the kid that's all he will eat. It's tough to communicate with and convince children. Like, I would go on hunger strikes when I was little. I would only eat mushroom soup, Campbell's cream and mushroom soup, or my grandma's put a hat, or there was a number of things. I would only eat cabbage rolls, but not the cabbage. I would only eat this filling from the cabbage roll that grandma, and it had to be grandma's cabbage roll. I wouldn't eat other. So there were only a few things that I would bother to eat. Oh, and Dare sugar cookies. But so all of which grandma provided, because I really only wanted to eat what grandma fed me. So that was my grandma, not the one who's alive still. I wouldn't eat her food either, except for her meat pies, which I like those, but I don't know. I have no need to learn how to make those because I'm not going to eat meat pies now. So, well, we'll see how far this rabbit hole takes me. Anyway, so other people are telling him, you know, you should feed him some vegetables. They're like, you see him buying mac and cheese, and he's like, yeah, you know, there's incredible ways. Like, there's a whole website devoted to how you can hide vegetables in mac and cheese, and I've learned that you can put baby food, the pureed vegetables, into mac and cheese instead of using dairy to mix it up. And it hides really well, especially things like the butternut squash puree and stuff like that. Works really well. And the dogs love it. But anyway, so he's talking about that. And there's so he's under a lot of stress, and finally he loses the contract for his job, and he's finally he decides, I need to spend more time with my child. I'm going to cash out my whatever savings thing, tax savings, whatever. I don't know what RSP or whatever. I don't know. So and he's like, you know, I don't know, I realized there's got to be $20,000 in there or something, whatever. And the guy's like, there's $400,000. And he's like, what? And the kid has been making investments for him because he's autistic, but he's bright, you know. It's just hard to get through to him, hard to communicate with him in different ways, you know. His brain works a different way. So anyway, so it turns out I don't know how much of that could be true, but in the end, it looks like they're going to make it. And what a nice story, right? So, and anyway, now this one is a series. It's, I don't know. There's a lot of crime detective kind of dramas from the UK lately, for the last while, and I think there's good reason for that. And but I mean, British mysteries have always been popular, but this is, it's really there's a lot of these things. So anyway, it's not bad. It follows. It takes 238 minutes, and to solve one crime, really. And so you follow it, from episode to episode, and each episode ends up is a story on its own, right? So it's worth watching on its own. So I could see how people could get into this. Like a lot of shows that I watch them in this format, and a lot of the time I think, well, if this was on TV week to week, I probably wouldn't get into it, but I like watching it this way, right? But this one you could watch from week to week. You could get into it that way. And now it's not really special or anything. It's just something that's on in the background, and I'm sure there's lots of shows that you watch too that are like that. So this could fill that space. This one, what's it called again? Dragged Across Concrete. And I really shouldn't have expected that much. Guess I really didn't. I had Vince Vaughn on a no watch list. James remembered that. But I didn't really want to watch this, and so James watched it for the most part, and we kind of made jokes about it. But James actually thought it was worth watching. It has the potty mouth sister from Dexter in it, and she plays a different kind of character than she'd played in Dexter. So it shows that she has some versatility. And James thought that Mel Gibson actually did a decent job in this. That it was a different kind of role for him. So he thought it was actually worth watching. Now, we did make some jokes about it, like I guess there was one scene where Mel Gibson was torturing a woman with the shower, and then taking her out and putting her in the fan, right? So she'd be like, "Oh, don't show the audience my hard nipples. What torture?" I don't know. But anyway, apparently it worked. And she gave up her information. But it just seems ridiculous, right? But I should say she was wearing a bikini, so you don't even get to see her nipples. So, I don't know. Whatever. So, there's that. And what else? Oh, James said surprise ending is worth watching for. So, even if you're like me and you're not into the show as it going along, maybe, just watch the end. Because, anyway. And History of Christianity 2, like I said, we'll be talking about it later. It's awesome. It's a 6 DVD set. And the instructor, she really knows her stuff. And I like the way she looks at how she evaluates how the different I guess strains of Protestantism that developed, and so she's really quite positive about how she's evaluating them. So she doesn't seem to have a negative bias towards any of them, and she'll say, "Ooh, this seems a little hard to understand and creepy," but when you look into it, you can kind of see where they're coming from, and and she shows that, right? So she tries to understand people, which I appreciate, because that's what it's all about, right? So anyway,